Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hi, Emily.
Hey, hey, hey. All right, I'm gonna get my screen set up. This is crazy. We're doing it. How was your day at school today?
It was pretty good. I actually got lost in my ceiling because like I keep finding like new picture or paintings that students drew. So like I'm just real grateful. There's a list on the back of all the books that there are that I had a TA do a few years ago. Um,
That's
but yeah.
awesome. Just,
Ooh,
just want to check you can see my screen. Is that right? I'm
I
doing it
got it.
right.
Yep. What's your
Fantastic.
personal why?
What is your personal why? Welcome, everyone. We're gonna wait a little while until to get started until we have everyone here. While we wait, drop it in the chat. What's having you show up today?
Trying to think. Yeah, for me, it's speed personally. Like as far as a personal why, um, like I will never be able to give feedback as quickly as an AI. Uh, and there is virtue in there.
Hey, Henry. Yeah, but that's why you use it as a teacher. Why do you want students using it? Why do you want students having their hands on AI? What's inspiring you on that?
Oh, that's what, okay. Never
Because
mind. I
we've
was being
already done
selfish.
your
My bad.
sessions. We know why teachers are using it. I want to know why students should be using it.
Man. Totally fair.
Damn, that's a really, really good question. I think part of my personal why comes to a kiddo I had named DJ. And I remember we had one day where we had Hour of Code. I don't know if any of you have used that. And DJ was always super strong in math, but like very distractible. And then all of a sudden, he was like learning how to code. And it was just a different world opened up for him. And I could just see, oh, DJ's going to go be a developer. And because we did this for 1 hour in our classroom, we've opened up those opportunities. And that really excited me. All right, looks like we have a science teacher in the house who's doing some guided practice with some cool tools. Very excited about that. We're definitely gonna have an opportunity to share out tools that some folks are already using. And we're gonna get started. Andrew, should we wait a minute more? Are we ready to go?
Let's do it.
Great, let's get going. Hi, everyone. I'm not Andrew. I'm Emily. I'm super excited to be here. I was an educator for 10 years, an assistant principal in New York City, and I've recently broken my heart and left the classroom, and I'm at business school. And I chose to go to business school because I had this big question about what is the future of work for teachers. And at that moment, AI was just handed to all of us. And I deeply believe that AI is going to help teachers be better and create a profession that is like worthy of our students and work. So I'm really, really excited about this, and I'm excited to dive into what we're doing today. One ask to the group, and if we can drop this link in the chat as well, so people can get there fast. If you haven't already joined the CoGrader Facebook group, take a moment right now and join it. We're going to do some stuff later, and I just want to make sure the place that we're using is like troll free and just like a place for only teachers. So go on in and join that. I'll give everyone a second to do that. Thank you. Thank you. Except for especially our biologists, because I'm going to be really excited to hear about what you are using for CoGrader. All right. And just like you say to your students, if Facebook or social media just distracted you, thanks for bringing it on back here. Today, we're going to be answering 4 questions. One is why AI in our classroom. So I know, Sam, I'm hoping to convince you. Two, how to teach our students what AI is. Third, there's a lot of questions about responsibility. And fourth, my favorite part, the how and like the what AI tools I'm loving the most. So let's get through those first three parts and get to the fun fourth part of actually what we can do with kids. And so why, as I'm thinking about AI, think about what percent of your students are going to be using AI in their future careers. What about as college students? And as you think about, if you're like me and you're thinking 100% of us will probably be using this in our career and as college students, ask yourself what percent of students will be using AI in your classroom. And I want to push us there because what percent of students do you think are already using AI in our classrooms? And I think it's pretty high because when I go on to TikTok, I think this is what our students are seeing. I'm going to show us two TikToks, and I want you to think about which student you want our students to be. And this is what our kids are seeing on their social media. Pretty cool. Sounds like a smart student studying well. What about, do you think your students are using it this way? That is what our students are seeing on TikTok. And if we don't talk to them about what AI is and how they should be using it and how they're growing, oh no, none of the audio worked for that. I'm going to keep going and I'm going to drop those TikToks into the Facebook chat for later. I feel like you got the vibe. One girl was using the tool to create an interactive textbook. The other, sorry, Sam, the other person was just basically cheating with an AI built in that was pulling answers and answering them. And it is wild to me. At Berkeley, in the syllabus at business school, professors are telling me that I can use AI. And my experience is that if I'm not using AI for my master's degree, I'm falling behind my peers who are. So when we think about if using AI, like to me, the bigger danger is like, what if our kids don't use AI? Are they really ready to succeed in this world? And if we aren't the ones who teach them how to, who is? So that brings us to part two. We're going to talk about responsibility of using AI. And my first question when I think about being responsible is, do my students have the digital literacy to use this tool safely? I'm going to share a lot of resources with you to make sure they do have that digital literacy. Secondly, how is this going to impact my classroom culture? Again, resources coming in a second. I think a lot about if I rolled out AI in my classroom and the teacher next door to me didn't, am I undermining their work? If I'm the science teacher showing kids a tool in AI and my writing teacher isn't on board with that, what am I inadvertently doing? Again, we got a lot of tools for you on that. And finally, I know this is one of the stressors for teachers who are AI curious is how are we working with parents and administrators on this? Thank you so much for that. So first, let's teach our kids about AI. I have 4 amazing websites that I have found that have so many resources. At the end of this session, I'm going to drop everything so that you have links to all of these. There's a lot of bad stuff on the internet. I've made sure to go through and only find things that I would use in my own classroom. I started with Common Sense Education because it's a site that people know and trust, especially if your principal is one of those folks who's not sure about AI. They've probably heard of Common Sense and they probably trust what they're doing. The other nice thing about these lessons is that they're 20 to 15 minutes short lessons, and a lot of them actually don't include AI. They include videos or they include discussions, so you can start the conversation about AI without having to make the jump yet. They're also helpful if you're someone who's not sure about what AI is to get up to speed. You might be the teacher who's like, I don't have 20 minutes in my scope in this unit to talk about AI. This resource is incredible. AI EDU has put together 300 plus slides that are 5 minutes. These could be like when kids are coming into classroom, you just have it posted on the board, you're having a discussion. And the thing that's really fun about this, you can see on the side here, it says this is for English classrooms. They've done it for every single subject. So this is a really small way to start conversations about AI. If you have time to go a little deeper, and I'm talking to you science and math teachers out there, AI for Education has 4 lessons that are like ready to go. You could print the worksheet tomorrow, submit the lesson plan to your administrator, and be ready to go. What my favorite one, and we'll come back to later, is co-creating an AI policy. Again, all of these links and resources are going to be provided to you at the end, so stay around so you can make sure to get those. And if you are someone who really has the ability to do a mini unit, MIT does Day of AI. This resource is incredible because not only do they have lots of mini units, they have them for every age level. So you can be all the way from elementary school to high school. They posted all of their material from last year, and Day of AI is going to be May 13th, 2024 this year. So I'm excited to follow what they're going to come out with this year. And again, this is another great example to say, oh, I'm doing something with MIT. It's a name that your principal is going to respect. Now that your kids have a little bit more literacy about what AI is, we can start talking about how to use AI. And my main headline to you here is you're already a great teacher and you've probably done a lot of these things before. So first off, you might be thinking about, how do I design my lessons? This is no different from when you're thinking about how to use a laptop cart in your classroom. Are you going to project it on the screen and have one AI and you be the one driving it? Or are you going to do one computer per group of students? Or are you going to do it one-to-one? One thing to note about AI in particular, or ChatGPT, if your students are under the age of 13, you're going to have to be the one driving it because of some of the rules that ChatGPT uses it. Another tip is, if this is your first time using a technology, don't create a whole 60-minute lesson using just that one tool. Keep it small and short, test it out, see how it goes. There's nothing worse than when you think a website is going to work and then all of a sudden, it used to be the Wi-Fi would go down in my school building and then I'd be standing in front of the classroom with nothing to do. So keep it small, see how it goes, and adjust. And just like you have already in your classroom, I bet, for maybe discussion norms, think about how you'd create AI norms or an AI policy in your classroom. This poster is one of my favorite anchor charts that I've seen online, where that for every assignment, the teacher clearly checks what level of AI students are able to use that day. Maybe they're at a level 6 where they can paste an entire response from ChatGPT right into the response. Maybe they're at a level 1 and they're not allowed to use AI at all. That's no different than probably what you're already doing with computer policies in your classroom. Is this a tech day or not a tech day? Another great part of this, and this one is really legit because it's actually what my professors require me to do. If you have students use AI, they need to acknowledge that they used it and just put a note at the end of the document. This is what I did with AI. There's a third poster to this that I don't have that even has an MLA citation, if that's the way you want to go. I mentioned this earlier. This is the lesson that has the collaborative AI classroom policy. This is exactly what I would use. I would create a day to have kids create the policy, because that's the reality of the life that they're going to have to choose. When is it appropriate to use AI and when is it not? We want to make sure kids are set up to ask themselves that question. So as they get into higher ed and their jobs, they know how to navigate that kind of question and never get in trouble academically or professionally. I know this is one that makes people nervous about district policy. There are lots of great resources out there. I've included two in what you're going to get at the end of today's session. First is just a real school's AI policy. I particularly liked Peninsula School District because the way they spoke about AI was with excitement. They really talked about why it was a good thing, and then they covered all of the concerns that parents had. They also have a really good parent FAQ section to check out, and it's a great place to take any language if you need. Teach AI is another organization that's provided an entire toolkit, and it's all in an editable Google Doc with letters to parents, letters to teachers, student integrity policies. There's so much there that's just ready to reproduce and use. They've really thought through all of the ethical issues and the data issues. I would check this out 100%. You also might be thinking about principal approval. Please, as the former assistant principal me, do not, whatever you do, go to your principal and say, can I use ChatGPT in my classroom? The moment you say that to your principal or your coach, they're immediately going to think of every single way it will go wrong and how it's going to be their job to fix the problem. Instead, play the politics. Say, I'd love your feedback on an upcoming lesson where I wanted to use AI to push critical thinking, and then show them all the ways that you've already done some research about school policies and how you're going to keep kids safe and engaged. I bet your school leaders are looking for teachers just like you to take the lead and to set the example on AI policy. This is a really great opportunity for you to step up in that leadership role and have a lot of voice. And finally, more and more, I think this is going to be a concern teachers are going to start having, which is two parts. One, we are living in a golden age of free AI tools. Right now, there are so many new companies trying to get folks using their tools, and they're offering them for free. Get in while these tools are still available. You're going to start seeing that there's going to start being some paywalls. Now, we understand that, like, as teachers, you only have so many resources available to you. And if you're really excited about a tool, but you don't feel like you have enough access to that tool to yet say, I want to use some of my classroom budget on that, or I want to ask the district to pay for this, there's like one good way to go about that is to reach out to that company and say, I would love to do a pilot on this. I need to show some examples to my administration so I can show why it's a good use of our technology budget. If you're a teacher who's going to connect these companies with administrators, with IT, these companies are going to be really excited about it. And I'm speaking from personal experience because working at CoGrader, we're about to launch an ambassador program, and we're looking for AI leader teachers just like that. All right, that's all of the boring logistic stuff, but the important logistic stuff. Yeah. Hey, Jillian, I'm seeing your question about the slides. We will have access to all of this, and I've summarized it so you don't have to flip through all the slides and you can go even faster. Thanks for asking. This is the really fun part, how we're going to be using AI in classroom with students. This is what gets me really excited. Before we think about all of the tools and get excited, it's really important that we step back and we think, is this tool going to allow students to be stronger, to be smarter, to be more independent, to be more creative? Or am I just excited about AI? Don't use this tool if it doesn't do things for students. You also are going to want to think about, you probably already have a lesson or a unit. Does the technology need to change, or does the lesson need to change? More and more, what we're asking of students is no longer relevant in an AI world. So you might be needing just to change the lesson, up the rigor, up the critical thinking, now that AI is available. Third, If you're someone who's ever taught English language learners, you might be used to having a language objective as a secondary objective. If you're using AI in the classroom, you might want to ask, what's my AI objective for this lesson? You don't need to tackle all of AI in one day with kids, just like you don't need to tackle all of the English language in one day. Maybe that day is just students will be able to recognize a hallucination and respond to it. Maybe students will be able to write a prompt with specific directions. So think about what you're focusing on for that day so the technology doesn't overwhelm what students are doing. All right, my favorite tools. So what I'm really hoping for is that I have found a bunch of tools that I think are actually quality tools. There's a lot of really boring AI, ChatGPT stuff out there. These ones are not that. In the chat, I would love to hear from people how they would use this tool in the classroom. Part of the fun things about having lots of teachers here is that we're representing lots of subjects, lots of types of classrooms, and lots of types of teachers. So the more ideas that we can get flowing, the more productive this entire webinar will be. First tool, you might have heard about people using this one. It is called Hello History. They have both an app for phones as well as a website, and you can interview a famous person. Take a moment. When would you be using a tool for this, like this in your classroom? They have famous scientists, famous historians, famous mathematicians. How might you use it? I know for me, I think this would be a beginning of a unit, curiosity building, and letting kids ask and explore questions. Maybe this would even go into a KWL chart for me to generate some questions about what we wanted to learn. This is one of my favorite tools for all the special educators out there, which means every single one of you, because gen ed teachers are special ed teachers too. Think about the students who have an IEP support that has to do with chunking tasks, executive functioning, or any student you've ever had that you've given a discrete task list or checklist or criteria for success to make sure they're set up for success. This tool called Goblin Tools, you can put in a task and then AI will chunk the task for you. So for example, I put in, I need to complete my homework. It then chunked that task into smaller steps. You can put the level of peppers to say how spicy you want the chunking to be, which I can think about different students who would be definitely a 3-pepper student and some students who'd be a 1-pepper student. I wish I had something like this when I was teaching my student DJ, because not only would it be cool to be able to give him these lists, but it'd be really exciting to allow students to generate their own chunked task lists. Spicy means that it's more chunked into smaller steps. Another one I thought about is I need to write an outline for an English paper. I've also started using this tool in my own life with my own tasks. Oh, Helen Keller would be totally an awesome person to interview for that last one. And then one thing also, just going back to the last example, I think I would love to have the conversation with students about, are you actually talking to this person? Is this a primary source? And I'd want them to understand, no, AI is not a primary source. It's just a collection of everything on the internet that person wrote or has been written about them, processed again into a different form. I'd also want to ask students, hey, when you're rich and famous one day, how would you feel if there was a chat bot answering questions pretending to be you? Maybe some students would love it. Maybe some students would hate it. I think that's a really great question to be having with students about AI and the impact it's going to have on our lives. All right. Third AI tool. And Andrew, I know you have some thoughts about this, so I'm excited for you to chime in as well. I wish I had this in college. Consensus is the name of this tool. This is an amazing tool because when you're doing research papers with students, you can have students type in their question and Consensus will pull up scholarly articles. The way that AI is working here is that it's counting the number of citations to that paper and it's elevating the ones that they think are stronger papers. It also has a really nice abstract and summary and link to those papers. It is so much better than our students just Googling and reading Wikipedia. Andrew, tell me about how it went in your classroom.
Hi Emily, hi everybody. I tried this because students are starting to do research for a debate. If you were here yesterday, I showed you the prompt of how I'm like differentiating that. However, oh, hi. However, what I found was some of my really stronger like readers, they really gravitated toward Consensus because it let them just type in their research question. Students who like ended up really struggling with the kind of reading and journal articles that Consensus brought them or dug up for them, they had a much easier time using a different software called Opposing Viewpoints, where it's more of a traditional database. I totally used it to find a ton of research for something I'm going to bring to my union bargaining soon. So it really helped me. I strongly recommend. This is awesome.
Yeah, these are my favorite tools where it's one where both my students would use it and I would use it. Speaking of tools that I have used for myself, this one I would really love to hear how folks are planning on using in their classroom because honestly, I don't think there's any good academic use of it, but I had to include it because I know teachers love joy and fun. This is if your students do a drawing of a character, a person, an animal, you can actually animate that drawing to move or to dance. I can think of some ridiculous things I would have done with this in my classroom. In fact, I did it at home because I was like, well, if you could do it with a drawing, why can't you just do it with a photo? And so there goes my husband animated. I could definitely imagine using this for like student of the week or to celebrate a student had done really good work getting their work animated, rainy day activities. Yeah, this indoor recess problem solved. It's my least favorite teacher duty ever. It also could be fun to do a class mascot. And it also kind of let students see about how AI is not just about words. There's a whole space of images and animation. Back to the academics. This website is a powerhouse and you need to start using it before it costs money because I'm sure a paywall is coming from School AI. I think something like this will honestly replace textbooks one day. They have all of these different spaces. Some of them are test prep, history, literature, and it's a chat bot really simply, but it's a really well-designed chat bot. The thing that's really cool about School AI is that it starts and asks our students a question. So students are already engaging with the chat bot. They have ones for 1984. They have ones for ancient Greece. And the tone of each chatbot is different and very engaging and amusing. I was curious because I was also seeing some lower elementary school texts on here, like brown bear, what do you see? And it immediately started having me make connections between my life and the text that I just read, and then brought me to thinking about lessons learned and inferences I was making from a book. And I was thinking, this is amazing. But then I, for a second, was like, but are my younger readers able to type and read at that level yet? And then I realized they also have a setting where everything can be read aloud to you and you can speak back to it. They also have some pretty cool foreign language stuff in here. I could definitely go down a little bit of a rabbit hole just having fun with this tool. Again, this is one that you'll get a link to at the end of the session with all of these materials. This is a game changer, and I'm super curious in the chat to hear how teachers would use this in their own classroom. But first, let me set the scene. Maybe you've been this teacher who's like, has this brilliant idea that we're going to do student presentations. Kids are going to do their own research. We're going to jigsaw it, and everyone's going to learn from each other. You plan it all out. And then what happens is that you have your research days. You didn't have Consensus. Students are using Wikipedia. Then students have to make their own PowerPoints. That ends up taking more than 2 days. Then you need to be the enforcer telling students this is a big part of their grade and they need to get it done. And then you end up having PowerPoints that look like this because your students just spent 2 days in your classroom picking the font color. This is not my favorite part about teaching. And too often it made me shy away from having students practice public speaking. Gamma solves all of that. Gamma is AI that creates presentations. So I imagined back when I was a science teacher that I wanted to do a jigsaw of biomes and assign a different biome to each group. Then I would want students to make their own presentations. It comes out looking incredibly professional with all the right information that I needed from students. Also, once Gamma creates the presentations, students still can go in and edit the presentation and add more to it. And before they get the presentations, this is basically all they have to do. You can fill in what you want your presentation to look like. So here I said I wanted these 5 slides. This could be something either you tell students need to be part of the presentation, or if you wanted to level up, you could have students think about what are the important information that I need to have a complete presentation. You then can say who the audience of the presentation is and the tone of the presentation. I love that because it allows students to get their voice through as well. Finally, one tip I would use here is it prompts you for how much text you want per card or per slide. I would definitely have students required to click brief, because if you clicked detailed, you're going to end up with students just reading off the slide, which really isn't good public speaking presentation. Finally, I thought it was really powerful to see when a hallucination came into Gamma, it still has our students be intellectually involved. So for example, here's a picture of a cheetah that came up on my Chandra slide. That's wrong. If a student showed that in the presentation, I could tell that they weren't engaged and thinking about, is this a good slideshow? There's also so many opportunities for them to level up. To get a little meta for a second, this works for something like a tundra biome, but then I was like, well, could I just create today's presentation on Gamma? And I tried and I couldn't. So the more level of critical thinking and creativity, it's not going to create something good. But if you're having kids present on information that is like well documented and pretty clear, Gamma is going to cut through all of the time where they would have to build a presentation and get them right to the part where they have to be delivering it. So the way I would organize student presentations now with AI, instead of it being 7 days, it's now only 3 days. On my first day, I'd have students using Gamma and then looking at Gamma, which gives them about a 50% of the way their presentation. And I'd be like, how do we take this from 50% to 100%? How do we make sure all of the information is accurate and correct? I'd have students go home that night and take a video of themselves presenting it as a practice presentation. During day 2 in class, I'd have students give feedback to each other on their videos. And then finally on day 3, I'd have students do presentations. Andrew also is next level AI. He was telling me, and Andrew, you might need to chime in if I'm getting this wrong, that you had kids record using Flipgrid. Flipgrid then exports what they say as text, and you fed it into CoGrader, and CoGrader was able to grade it on a rubric. I'm just imagining how, in the before time, I would have spent 5 hours watching Flipgrids, then filling out on my paper rubric and then passing back. I'm imagining how doing it that way, all of a sudden I'm able to grade all of those in 30 minutes. How cool. And then pick out some of the best ones to highlight in class. I see so much potential there. Andrew, anything you want to add on?
No, a really, really helpful feature of CoGrader is the ability to take a spreadsheet and import, if it has the students writing in it, and put it into CoGrader so it can grade as if you had imported from Classroom. So anything that dumps the student's writing into a spreadsheet or the student transcript of them speaking into a spreadsheet, you can do exactly the same thing. So it's not going to be helpful for grading the visual elements of a presentation or a video, but as far as content and what they were saying, and I use this for a speech, it removed the need to do like multiple days of presentations where by the time the 15th student gives a similar kind of speech, people are bored and disengaged,
Yeah.
myself included. So it was really helpful. 10 out of 10 would recommend. It works really well with Google Forms too.
I love that. I've definitely been there where you have too many student presentations to do. And it even makes me think that because you can now do student presentations faster, you can do more of them in a school year. And so if you still do want to have some element of in-person presentations, you can cycle through which student's turn it is to give a presentation in this round. And that way you still can do a bit of both without having like the 3 days of listening to boring presentations. I love that. And
I'm
I think
stealing that idea. That's good.
that's you. You're just collaborating. I love it. I really love something like Gamma, but there's some moments where I'm like, is it doing too much for students? Did it draw too much information about the tundra for students? And it depends. What's your objective? What are you trying to get students to do? Additionally, I think one of the other things is that I'm in business school now, and I used to strongly, strongly believe that I was setting my students up for success in the world because they knew how to use PowerPoint or Google Slides. I used to believe that being able to create a slideshow presentation was a professional necessity. It no longer is because of AI. So we shouldn't be spending our time teaching students how to make slideshows. 2 years from now, AI is going to be doing all of it. Let's teach our students better skills that are more future focused. Up until this point, I've been talking about tools that are not ChatGPT. I'm going to shift a little bit to be talking more about working directly with a language model like ChatGPT. Up until this point, the nice thing about using tools like we've seen before is that they're interacting with the AI for you, and then they're putting it out with a pretty face on it. But once you start using these tools, you're going to start having ideas. Well, why can't we have it do X? Why can't we have it do Y? And so one of the really nice things about working directly in ChatGPT is how you get to own, tinker, and change so it fits your classroom well. I'm not even going to get into language learning. I'm just going to tease how much can happen with language learning because this could be a whole other seminar. But if you write a prompt for ChatGPT to have a conversation with you, like I did here to practice my colors in Spanish, it will do that. This prompt will be included in the materials afterwards, and you could recycle this. I can think about this being such great independent practice in a language classroom. This one could be used in any subject. I used to teach math and I spent hours making each word problem specific to a different student and their interests. ChatGPT can do that for you. So for example, here I gave it a prompt to make Newton's laws of motion applicable to something relevant to a student's lives, whether that is cooking, a shopping mall, soccer, walking their dog. And then ChatGPT came up with examples of all of Newton's laws of motion in these settings. I can imagine having students log on during independent practice, coming up with their own examples in the context of their choosing, then bringing the class back together to either maybe you're quizzing people on which of the 3 laws it is, or maybe you're just sharing out your favorite example. This one's particularly fun because then when students leave your classroom, each of them in their own way is seeing what you talked about in their own world and why it matters to them. This one I personally use for my master's degree. ChatGPT can be your tutor in so many ways. It can create practice problems. So here's just an example. If you were teaching Toni Morrison and you had a vocab quiz coming up, you could have ChatGPT generate a practice vocab quiz. Yeah, you can make it, but it's even better if we teach our students how to make the quiz, because then they can continue practicing generating new quizzes. And when they get to college, they know how to use this as a study tool. You might be thinking even beyond that, like if ChatGPT can create the quiz, like why can't we give students even more autonomy in the learning? So I was like, well, what if we had students be the one who pulled the vocab words that they needed to know before reading the chapter? And if you ask ChatGPT, what are the list of 10 essential vocab words in chapter 3 of Beloved, ChatGPT is going to give you those words. I'm imagining our students in college doing the same thing before they read when they don't have a professor holding their hands through complex texts. In advisory, I can think about ways that you could use the conversational piece of ChatGPT to have students set their SMART goal. In the past, I used to use a worksheet or a step-by-step thing. This would give students even more autonomy in that space. It would free you up as an advisor to be checking in, to be leading instead of managing advisory. One really important part of these prompts I'm learning is do not move on until I answered. When we put that in our prompts, ChatGPT asks a question and then doesn't answer it for us. It lets us answer the question. Finally, you might be at a place where you're like, I want even more ChatGPT freedom in my classroom. This is a great example from a teacher, Jen Roberts, who's thinking about how students are generating the way this tool can be used. I wouldn't start here. I would definitely do a lot of guided practice with ChatGPT before students have this freedom. But think about the power it gets to when students are able to make their own decisions about how this tool is used. I mean, imagine a world in which like students couldn't type something into Google without your permission. That sounds ridiculous. That's what it's going to be like with ChatGPT in a couple of years. We need to think about how are we getting students from where we are now to where we want them to be with ChatGPT. Finally, I know there's a lot of people in the room who are using AI and ChatGPT, and there are other awesome things out there. So for the last part of this webinar, I would love it if you go and join our CoGrader Facebook group. And I want you to drop other ideas you have, whether you've used them before, how it worked or didn't work. And maybe you're also curious about a specific tool, but you haven't used it yet. And you want to hear from other teachers about how did you design your lesson around this? How did you structure your room? What worked? And what should I be looking out for? I'm going to stick around. I know Andrew's going to be sticking around. We're happy to answer any other questions that come through in the chat. And we're looking forward to hearing on our Facebook page about how you are using ChatGPT. I also know this question came up earlier in the comments about will these materials be available? Yes, yes, yes. You can get the materials. They will be posted in the next 24 hours if they're not already there on our CoGrader Facebook website. Hey, Andrew, how'd I do?
Hi, I think you were great. One of the things I really appreciated is you came at this from a level and lens of student autonomy, and I think that that's extremely powerful. And it's making me think differently about some of the stuff I do.
I love that. I can't wait to hear about how that goes in your classroom because our kids are pretty awesome. I mean, I haven't,
They are.
but I bet they're awesome.
They're funny. Like Gen Z is funny.
I'm sure there's some funny ChatGPT things they get up to that would really make me laugh too.
They're just funny people. I was not that funny in high school, and I'm real grateful. It makes the days pass faster.
I'm gonna go check out our Facebook and see if I see anyone posting some cool ideas.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I'm real grateful. Thanks to everybody who's come to this AI week. We're excited to have you. Stoked. Oh, Mike, this guy, he's cool.
I'm glad it was helpful. Can't wait to see how it goes in your classroom. Keep us updated in the Facebook group.
Yeah, I posted the stuff from the prompts I did live. That stuff's in the Facebook group too. Feel free to check it out. Yeah, that was yesterday. I tried doing a thing live, and I didn't add the do not answer thing that you had. What was that again?
Do not wait for me to answer. I think that the prompt is
Gotcha.
do not move on until I
Yeah,
answer.
because
Do not move on until I
that's
answer.
it. So I'm gonna try that one because I started using a strategy to trick it into prompting itself, and I need that. That's what was missing.
No, that was legit
All
me
right, I'm gonna
practicing.
head.
I'm learning Spanish too.
That's awesome. So I'm gonna jump out. I got to get to a bargaining sesh, actually. Um,
Love it.
so yeah. So
Great.
thanks, guys. See y'all
Thanks
later.
all. I'm also going to jump. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them on the Facebook page, and I'd love to connect with you there.